Or dead,
just
right.
have been alive at some point.
Once alive things. Good point. And so, like, Robin's dead porcupine would count in that sense.
You are listening to Urban Wildlife Podcast.
Hello, and welcome to an episode of the Urban Wildlife Podcast and Nature's Hype Man. We're doing a dual podcast, and I guess if you're looking at us right now, dual podcast plus dual YouTube cast of our podcast, both of which are part of the Wildlife Observer Network. If you want to get in touch with us real quick, I'll get this information in there. If you want to get in touch with us at the Urban Wildlife Podcast, you can do that at Urb Wildlife Cast on Twitter. You can find us on Facebook and email us at urbanwildlifecast@gmail.com. For the broader Wildlife Observer Network, you can go to www.wildlifeobservernetwork.com and find us on Instagram at Wildlife Obs Network. And so I'll do some quick introductions. I'm one of your Urban Wildlife Cast co-hosts, Billy Brown, in his dining room. At the end of the day, I did clean up, but I recognize the viewers might notice I look kind of tired. And looking much fresher than me are Naveen, who's over there in that corner. Naveen is not a co-host of any podcast right now, not yet. But but Philadelphia's dominant iNaturalist contributor, and the official organizer for the City Nature Challenge in Philadelphia. And then we have Robin Irisari, who, in addition to being one of the co-hosts of Nature's Hype Man, also likes to play with dead porcupines. Robin, you want to talk about that video real quick?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. So it's been a long month of being at home and not being able to go out and explore very far. So my morning walks have been pretty close nearby, walking along the creek, walking along the train tracks behind the house. Pretty exciting find yesterday along the train tracks was actually a dead porcupine, which, if you know anything about Philadelphia and Montgomery County, we're well out of range of porcupines. They shouldn't be anywhere around here. So the closest I can figure out is that this unfortunate porcupine decided it was going to hop on a train down to Philly, slipped and fell to an untimely death, unfortunately. That's my hypothesis.
Yeah.
Pretty wild, pretty unexpected. Took lots of photos, put her on iNaturalist, took a video. The video is posted to our Wildlife Observer Network YouTube page. So if you want to check that out, if you want to see me fiddling around looking at this dead porcupine carcass, which everybody does, right?
Did you end up with any quills stuck in your skin?
I didn't. No.
Were you tempted to try it?
I think the
morbid, like, I think you want to try stinging nettles to see how they really feel.
Like, I could do without that. But
the emergency rooms in Philadelphia don't need you in there with a handful.
They don't. Yeah. You don't want to be the guy walking in with like a bunch of people. Anyway, more to see there if you want to go swing on over to Wildlife Observer Network YouTube channel and check out that full video.
Very true. I will say that porcupines are something that, well, if you're someone who's from, let's say like the New York latitude and south in the United States, you might not see many porcupines. You'll see like possums and raccoons and groundhogs as common roadkill. But once you get into the mountains, let's say in Pennsylvania, if you think of, I don't know, well, most of Pennsylvania is mountains, to be fair. And once you're driving around there, dead on the road porcupines are like right up there with the possums and the raccoons. So they're cute, but they're blundering, half-blind, creatures that their defense is to stand still. So it just doesn't work very well against mobile objects like trains or trucks.
I feel really honored that this thing came all this way and chose right behind my house to try and, hop off the train.
And I'll say, I'm impressed and surprised that none of your kids ended up with porcupine quills in them either. So that,
especially since I moved a bunch of the quills even closer to the house to kind of let them air out a little bit. Anyway,
Right.
that was my iNaturalist observation highlight of the weekend.
All right, so we're gonna move this along quick because we don't have a very long podcast because I've got the free version of Zoom that we're recording on right now.
Right.
And so we're going to talk about the City Nature Challenge. We talked about it a bit last year. Before I jump into it, or instead of jumping into it, I'm going to ask Naveen to jump into it because he is Mr. City Nature Challenge Philadelphia. You can see him with his sash and the Speedo on our website. Go ahead, Naveen, take it away.
Sure. Thanks, Billy. The City Nature Challenge is a 4-day competition that was started in 2016 by the California Academy of Sciences in San Francisco and the National History Museum of Los Angeles County as a way to engage citizens in some citizen science efforts. And they dreamed it up back in 2016, and it was just a competition between San Francisco and LA in the beginning. It later expanded to a bunch of cities across the US. I think it was 16. And worldwide after that. Last year, Philadelphia participated for the first time, and we're doing it again this year. I think this year there were 250 cities, despite all the COVID-19 issues. We're trying to make the best of it. So it's a BioBlitz type event, so it happens over 4 days, and cities around the world get their citizens out making observations of wildlife on iNaturalist for this 4-day period.
Awesome. And so how did we do last year?
Did pretty well for a first-time city. We think we were in the low 20s for both observations and species, 23, 24, I think. But we did really, really well in the number of people actually participating. I think we got 585 people to actually make at least one observation, beating out even New York City, and we ended up 16th place worldwide out of 158 cities, I think.
Yeah, and we kicked Tokyo's ass, which was like my job, which was early on, I was like, we got to pick the biggest city in the world and have them be our target. Also because they had this like informational card, which was like something out of like you would imagine like a joke, stereotypical Japanese piece of media, where it was just like jam-packed with writing and graphics. And I was like, man, these guys have got game. And so it turns out we walloped them. And the people who walloped us and everybody else, it turns out I was surprised we're Cape Town, South Africa. And we actually recorded an interview with the organizer there. And also La Paz, Bolivia did really well. And of course, Los Angeles and San Francisco, the original cities. But the global competition aspect of it is a lot of fun. But that'll actually be my segue into one of the big differences this year. So as you can imagine, the City Nature Challenge in a normal year is something that it lends itself well to nature walks, to BioBlitz events where you got a lot of people with some experts in some space looking under rocks, looking in plants, looking under logs, looking for mushrooms, snakes, beetles, what have you. And this year, that's basically impossible as group events because if we're going to be avoiding groups of people and keeping 6 feet away from each other, I don't know if you've ever led a nature walk or been on one. It's really hard to do with those kinds of conditions. So basically, the entire City Nature Challenge is shifting to something much more individually based. And the organizers, in light of just the massive difficulties that so many cities are going to have doing this, have changed it from a competition to a collaboration. And so I'll note that Naveen is incredibly competitive. The rest of us, just out of our Philly pride, I think end up pretty competitive, and Philadelphia is a city known for its competitive spirit. So this is kind of hard for us. I think no matter what, we'll be on some level running numbers and comparing ourselves to New York and Cape Town, frankly. But still, officially, it is not a competition. One of and we're going to get into a minute, some of the ways that, in a way, the City Nature Challenge is the perfect event for our social distancing, physical distancing reality right now. But I wanted and we should say this is starting off a little bit, obviously, because we're on Philadelphia and we're all on the organizing committee for the Philadelphia City Nature Challenge, a little bit Philly-centric. But we're going to talk about some of the things we're doing in Philadelphia, but really anywhere in the world, you can do this. So in terms of like leading up to the challenge, Naveen, why don't you talk a little bit about what you've been doing with a Facebook group we have for Philadelphia naturalists?
Sure, yeah. So after social isolation started, been mostly stuck at home, didn't have much to do, so I thought of getting people involved, looking at nature around there. So we had this Facebook group called the Philadelphia Field Naturalists Club, and I started posting daily challenges of things that are commonly found in the area that people can find in their backyards or just on neighborhood walks. So each day I post a species of wildlife and tell people to go look for it that day. Of course, doing social distancing and isolation, whatever safety precautions they need to take. So it's a good way for people to learn about what's around them.
I just had the impulse to tie a napkin at our dining room table around my face, having this conversation. Go ahead, sorry.
Yeah, so I think it's a good way to get people to know what kind of plants and mushrooms and animals are around them, and just get them ready to be able to spot these things during the actual City Nature Challenge. Starts in a couple of days for when we record this.
And it's something, it points to different ways that we can hype, or that we can, the City Nature Challenge, all it is observations of non-domesticated or non-cultivated things that are alive during a 4-day period in the cities that have signed up for that, right? So for Philadelphia,
it doesn't need to be alive, though.
Or dead,
just
right?
To have been alive at some point.
Once alive things. Good point. And so, like Robin's dead porcupine would count in that sense. So the where was I going with that? I guess my point is that it's a very general concept, and so you can be someone like me who's into reptiles and amphibians and just be like, I'm going to find as many damn salamanders as I can find, and that all those observations will count. Or you could say, I am going to take each day and pick a different set of taxa or something that we're going to focus on Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Monday. Different places. You can say like Sunday is basement day. I'm going to catalog every arthropod that lives in my basement. So sort of getting ready with these kinds of challenges is perfect. And Robin, why don't you talk about some ways that people are focusing? Like, I think I might have just stolen your thunder a little bit, but go ahead with talking about how we can slice and dice the City Nature Challenge in however you want to slice and dice it.
Yeah, I mean, I think the big thing that we just love getting across to people is like, despite not being able to go out in groups, which is really fun and a big part of, what made last year so great. This app is just really versatile. You can go out and you can document, anything that you can find just with your phone, with your tablet. You don't even have to go outside. You can do this in your home. Billy mentioned the basement, check your basement, check your crawl space, find centipedes, house centipedes. I did
it in my bathtub.
Spiders.
By which I mean the silverfish that I found. I was not in the bathtub, but the silverfish was. So that was an observation.
Hey, last year, the night before, because it starts at the stroke of midnight on the 24th, right? So the night before, I left the bathroom window open so that at midnight I could go in and find some bugs flying around in my bathroom. So if you really want to, take this to the next level.
That's the kind of commitment we're looking from all the people watching this.
Invite the bugs into your home and then, chase them around like after the next couple of days are over. But there's lots of ways that you can do this, your backyard. If you've got a backyard, if you've got a bird feeder, I know it's not something that everyone has access to, but, we're all in different kind of places where we're all self-isolating. I happen to have a backyard here that I have some bird feeders up. I've been, taking some photos through the binoculars, digiscoping, getting pictures of some of the mourning doves eating seed on the ground, flipping logs, even just, I know Billy takes his walks through the neighborhood, goes to the community garden. The weeds growing up out of the cracks there, that's all wildlife. It doesn't have to necessarily be native wildlife. It's, introduced and stuff that's, just growing wild. One thing that Naveen had brought up in previous conversations was that, folks are doing moth nights throughout the City Nature Challenge. And if you're not familiar with the moth night, the idea is that you set up a big sheet, like a bed sheet or a white tablecloth, and you hit it with a spotlight through the night. A lot of times folks use a black light. Insects are just drawn to this big white glowing sheet, and you can just come by and periodically snap photos of everything that shows up. I know in a previous Urban Wildlife podcast, we talked about moth nights, and you guys have done some examples. So if you guys want to find that episode way back, you can click the link right here. So I don't know how to do that. So we'll put a link for you. But, there's lots of stuff that will come to a sheet like that. There's lots of ways that you can really,
I believe the episode title was Moth Night Every Night. But yeah.
Moth Night Every Night.
Yeah.
Every night. So there's lots of great ways that you can make the most of this. If you happen to have a little microscope, you can check that out. But there's lots of great ways that you can get involved. So
great. I'm going to share a screen real quick. I think this will work. Show off my an observation I made. Are you guys seeing my European field pansy?
Not yet, but I believe you that it exists.
Okay, well, it might not be. It should be showing up on the screen, but there. Actually, I just did it. I think it should be showing the pansy. Is that showing up now?
Not yet.
I still see Naveen. I still see Billy.
Because I never clicked share. There we go. There you go. I wanted to show off some stuff that I've seen recently.
Look at that.
We've got about...
This is magnificent as I imagined.
Zoom just gifted me a few extra minutes, it looks like, so we're not so desperate. But I wanted to show a few these are all sidewalk crack weeds that I found in my neighborhood. So you mentioned European field pansy. It's a violet that as it is not native, it's European. And this one, I like to highlight the eponymous plants that we have in Pennsylvania. In Philadelphia, this is a Pennsylvania pellitory, which is a member of the nettle family, and something that pops up sidewalk cracks around Philadelphia at least. And I will also share one of my beloved animals. This is a couple brown snakes that I found in the garden. My gloves were on because of the gardening, not because of the snakes, which are utterly harmless. So people who are listening to this, I just showed a picture of some brown snakes, which are small, very cute little snakes, and kind of tan color with a little bit of patterning on the back. Before that, it was just a bunch of green. But Pennsylvania pellitory, as great as the name is a very boring looking plant. It looks like a bunch of basil growing out of your sidewalk. And then the European field pansy looks like a common blue violet, really, but yellow, and the leaves are a different shape, sort of longer and a little bit indented. And so the point is that these are all things that I saw within, I don't know, like a 2-block radius of my house. I spared you guys the really grainy picture of the kestrels that live down my block. I digiscope them. The picture good enough to ID, which is what we care about. You don't want to just look at Naveen's iNaturalist account, which has lots of really good pictures. You want to look at my account, which has crappy pictures that were good enough. And because that's all you need for the Signature Challenge.
I saw those pictures. It was like a tiny Bigfoot perched on the top of a building across the street from your house.
Exactly. But you can tell that it's a kestrel.
Little Sasquatch footage.
That's the important part.
Yeah, it was identifiable.
Yeah.
And then these pictures are identifiable.
Well, because the kestrels kept doing it. Like, they were mating over and over again. And I kept, they don't take that long. And so I kept getting pictures, getting my, phone and, binoculars ready when they were sort of just chilling in the afterglow. And so, I kept missing the moment. So there you go. That hold on one second, guys. I'm getting my notes together. Okay, great. So that was about all we meant to talk about today. I think the key message also is you might not know where, whether your city is competing. Again, 250 odd cities around the globe. I would say just Google City Nature Challenge, and they got a list on the website of all the cities that are competing. Even if you're not competing, I like to make the point, the City Nature Challenge, the competition is great. This year there's not a competition, but the point of it is to get people engaged with nature around where we live. And so if you're an urbanite, like the three of us on this call, and like frankly most people on the planet, I think, urbanite or suburbanite, I guess, then we shouldn't just think of nature as being something out in the parks where you have to drive to. And it is also, you can also connect with wildlife, connect with nature, connect with biodiversity, and maybe learn about it and eventually learn to conserve it right around where you live. And so the City Nature Challenge is something that even if you can't take part in the specific City Nature Challenge, the overall mission is accessible all year wherever you are. And tools like iNaturalist, and we're not like paid by Naturalist or anything like that. We're not shills for them. We also use eBird, and there's some other apps out there too, we know. But these are all ways to collect data that's useful for researchers eventually, that you can connect yourself to nature and also join communities of people who are interested in this kind of thing. And so those are all wonderful things, even if you are not in a competing city yourself. I'm going to wrap up in a second. Do you guys have anything else you want to add here at the end?
Yeah, I think so. The one thing I want to plug, and I'm not associated with it anyway, is the Never Home Alone project on iNaturalist. I think it's really cool. And
can you say that one more time?
Sorry?
Just catch that word. The never what?
Never Home Alone. So it's a project started based on some data collected by, I think, North Carolina State University. They did a study example what species live in people's houses. And I think they got, or around 50 houses, they got over 10,000 observations over hundreds of species. So an average home has probably around over 50 species. So you don't even need to go outside your house to see a bunch of stuff. My own house, I'm pretty sure I can get 30 to 40 species over this 4-day period. If I look closely enough.
We interviewed Dr. Misha Leong of the California Academy of Sciences about research she did using City Nature Challenge data. And she actually was involved with that. I think we were talking a little bit about how she was going into houses around the Bay Area, sort of with their little siphon things, that the entomologists like to use, and sort of cataloging the bugs in people's homes. Basically, I'm looking, not that you can see this. All right, there's my windows in my dining room. So one of the hot spots in any house is the windowsills, because sometimes things crawl in from the outside, get trapped in between your window and your screen, something like that. So just using a little magnifying glass or something around your windows, you could probably find a dozen species. Yeah. Okay, Robin, you want anything at the end?
No, just want to, express how excited we are to be participating in the City Nature Challenge yet again, despite all of the circumstances surrounding everything this year. We're excited about that. We're excited about launching this Wildlife Observer Network. We're excited about having lots of podcasts and content already lined up to share with you all. So Make sure you swing over to the wildlifeobservernetwork.com and check us out on Facebook, Instagram. Lots of ways to stay in touch.
Yes, sir. And City Nature, it's almost the City Nature Challenge. I'm so used to talking about it, I forgot about the podcast part. Urban Wildlife Podcast. Again, you can reach us at Twitter at UrbWildlifeCast. You can email us at urbanwildlifecast@gmail.com. Find us on Facebook and give us ideas. And also, last year we talked to various people around the world who were doing the City Nature Challenge. If you're listening to this and are yourself taking part, we'd love to talk to you. And even if you're out there doing your thing in your basement, on your block, in the park, and you want to record a little voice note or a little audio on your phone as you're looking at stuff, please do that. That's the stuff we love to put in the podcast. So with that, thanks everybody. And in a few days, we hope you're out there eye-natting your tushies off and finding lots of neat stuff. Thank you very much. Have a good night.
Take it easy.